Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My friends, Allah bless you all. Okay, and Ramadan Mubarak to you all, and may Allah bless you all in this month. Let's continue. We have some questions, and then let's see what we can get through of yours. Al-Fatiha. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد صلاة تفرحه وتسعده وترضيه واجزه بها عنا ما هو أهله يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم زدنا ولا تنقصنا وأكرمنا ولا تهنا وأعطنا ولا تحرمنا وآثرنا ولا تؤثر علينا وأرضنا وارض عنا يا كريم. So, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, the first question that we have today is how do I determine where to resume if I break my prayer and re-enter it? So this is something in the Hanafi school known as Bina, where you build on the prayer that you've already started. And I would only recommend doing this if you know the rulings. It takes a bit of study, but for example, if someone was praying behind the imam and they invalidate the wudu, they can leave the prayer, go to the nearest water source, like make wudu, nearest tap or whatever. If they're in the mosque, go to the washroom facilities, repeat their wudu, come back and join the prayer. Right? And if they miss something, then they make it up. So this can get complicated, and if the imam's finished, then they can just continue where they are or go back to where they were praying and continue. So they continue the prayer as though they're behind the imam for those units. So they won't recite the Fatiha and the Surah, but they'll do all the other adhkar. So when do you do it? And so this is done like if you invalidate your wudu in a qiyam, you have to come back and return to that qiyam, Allahu Akbar, and stand there for the duration of saying Subhanallah 3 times. If you invalidate your wudu in a ruku', then you do the same, right? You'd have to repeat that ruku'. So that's the essential part of this. If you invalidate it in a sajda, you have to repeat that sajda. You can't just think, well, I went down to do sujood, so that sajda is done, and then I invalidated it, so I'll just do one more sajda and it's done. No, you have to repeat that particular sajda. So it can be a bit complicated, and I only managed to pull it off once. Well, the situation it came up once. I was praying in a mosque in Damascus, and nice small mosque near the market in Ruknuddin, and they had some taps at the back on the back wall, and the imam Thursday night, because the imam used to recite Surah Al-Jumu'ah and in Isha, and then so I realized, oh, the wudu's gone. I went to the back, quickly made wudu, and I was able to continue the prayer like this. But in any case, that's the ruling. There are more details to it, which I should be studied in a classroom environment. So Allah knows best. Is there a valid scholarly disagreement on machine versus hand slaughtered meat? Okay, there are going to be opinions. I personally believe that the disagreement is not a valid one. Those who say it's permissible, what they look at is the issue of like if you're using a knife to slaughter the animal, you're using an instrument to perform a task. And so if you're using a machine to slaughter an animal, you're using an instrument to perform a task. So you're holding the knife, but you might be pressing a button on the machine. And so that's their perspective. So they think it's the same. But this is from what I understood. There may be details that I'm not aware of. So based on what I've understood, that's the understanding. So the issue in the Hanafi school is what firstly, what are the conditions of a proper slaughter? According to Imam Muhammad Amin ibn Abidin, uh, it's firstly the tasmiyah, saying the name of Allah Azza wa Jal, and in mistakenly forgetting the tasmiyah to say the name is, it's that's one issue. It's excused, but deliberately not saying it is not excused in the Hanafi school. The second issue is that the person slaughtering is either a Muslim or like a practicing Jew and a practicing Christian, i.e., someone who actually believes in the existence of God, right? So that's the second thing, and because there are people that say they're Christians, but they don't really, believe in Christianity really. There's just Christian by identity kind of thing. So someone who actually has faith, and then the third is that out of the four things in the throat, three must be cut at least. So what are they? You got your windpipe, and you got your gullet that your food goes down, your windpipe, the trachea, and you got the two carotid arteries, and so at least three of these four must be severed. So that's one thing. The issue with the machine slaughtering is one is that is the name of Allah Azza wa Jal said on every single chicken? I really doubt it. I highly doubt it, because they hang the chickens upside down, they put them in a machine, and they go through whatever process they go through, and there's just like a spinning blade, cutting necks. So you can't guarantee have three of those, at least three of those four things in the neck that need to be cut, being cut. You could like kind of half cut, say an artery, it's not fully cut, it'll bleed, but is there, has it really been slaughtered properly? Then that's the question. Sometimes the blade goes too far and it can go right to, close to cutting the neck off, right? And that's haram, that's sinful. It's makruh tahrim in the Hanafi school. Just like if someone was to slaughter an animal from the back, starting from the nape, and to cut it until they got to the front, these arteries and the two pipes, that would be a valid slaughter, but you're sinful because you've tortured the animal. As opposed to a proper slaughter, what it does, it cuts off the blood to the brain. The brain's blood supply is gone, so consciousness, goes quickly. So even though the nervous system is still, firing, and you see the animal moving about, it's not actually feeling any pain, and it's actually a very humane way of killing the animals. Anyway, so these two questions are there. Is someone actually there saying Bismillah, Allahu Akbar, with every single chicken? And when they go through like God knows how many thousands an hour, it's not going to be possible for someone to be doing that. Now you can say on a group, but if they're there, but then if there's a group that's not even there, that they're coming into into the machine much later, like 40 minutes later, they weren't there when the person initially said the tasmiyah. It's a bit of an issue. And the second thing is it actually properly cut? And if it is properly cut, was there an excess? So that makes it sinful. That makes it sinful, wrong, harming the animal to that degree. So it's, Allahu A'lam. But I believe it's best to avoid this machine slaughtered meat. And the thing is, right, yes, there are sometimes procedures that need to be put into place, and in order to ensure halal meat. And you see people complaining about it a lot of the time. Oh, well, it just costs so much money, and this certifying board, they're the mafia, and they charge this much and they charge that much. Yeah, but you're paying for deen. I mean, ultimately, it's not about the chicken that's going down your throat. It's about knowing that this meat is halal. Someone's been there every step of the way, and they're ensuring that it's halal. And we live in a world where you can't have everything perfect, in the sense that you know, when they slaughter the animals, is each animal separated from the rest so they don't see it? Let's face it, it doesn't happen. So the basic requirements of halal and haram should be at least adhered to. And so it's best to avoid machine slaughtered meat, and that's why I understand, and Allah knows best. Okay. I'll come to your question, inshallah. Is there a hadith that allows narrating Israeliyat? Yes, there is a hadith. I did document the wording. There is a hadith from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Sahih al-Bukhari. حدثوا عن بني إسرائيل ولا حرج. Narrate from the children of Israel, Yaqub alayhi salatu wasalam, without any compunction. Right? You can do that, no problem. However, there is another narration that says, "La tusaddiquhum wa la tukadhibuhum." Don't don't say that they're true, and don't say they're lies, because a lot of these, we know there's been tampering and corruption of their texts, and and with a lot of these things, we know that they're not entirely trustworthy. There are certain things that we can say for sure that this is wrong. Like, anything that ascribes a sin to a prophet from the narrations of the Bani Israel, wrong. Like, if you look at the tafsir literature, in Surah Yusuf, for example, when she locked him in the room and she presented herself to him, there are all sorts of narrations that are found, that our scholars did narrate. I believe that they were narrated, some of them at least narrated them, based on, just to make people aware that, look, this is out there, and not necessarily saying this is what happened. And there are some that ascribe inappropriate acts to a tremendous prophet of Allah Azza wa Jal, alayhi salatu wasalam. So those we can definitely say. As for other narrations about, say, historical details, and these the events of the Exodus, for example, if it doesn't contradict our well-established sources, the Quran and the Hadith, then you can narrate them, you can read them, without vehemently affirming that it's true, and without saying it's a lie. So Allah Ta'ala A'lam, and that's the best approach for it. Allah. Okay. What is the Hanafi ruling on women attending the masjid? Okay, so the classical ruling in the Hanafi school is that there was a difference. They allowed all the ladies to go to Fajr and Isha, and they didn't allow young ladies to go to the mosques. That was, based on their situation, their society. Things change with time. Like, we have a narration, the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to allow ladies to go to the mosque, and Sayyidah Aisha, a lady herself, radiallahu ta'ala anha wa ardaha, she said to the ladies of Medina, like, if the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam saw what you do now, he would have forbidden you. So, the standards may have changed, or certain behaviors may have changed, and so she didn't want them. She said that this is fiqh, like being able to apply a principle, and to different scenarios. The ruling may change, but the principle is the same, and that's what the ruling is based on. And so then later scholars in the Hanafi school said, no, none of them should go, neither the younger nor the elderly. And this, their times and their societies were different. And in our times, we have a situation where, like in the past, or in certain places, ladies would stay at home mostly, and it'd be rare to see a lady out in public. In certain places, traditional societies. Now we have a very different situation where, they are going out, and, people work, people have to go to the market, go buy things or whatever. So, contemporary scholars such as Sheikh Hassan al-Hindi of Damascus, Hafidhahullah Ta'ala, And I've said that it would be permissible for ladies to go to the mosque. There are conditions, of course, that there's appropriate dress, and there's no inappropriate mixing with members of the opposite gender. Inappropriate would be like where either if someone's alone with a member of the opposite sex, or where they're gathering and they're there's flirtatious interactions or anything like this. That wouldn't be accepted. But so yeah, so there's a need. So for example, a lady, I was once, I just came out of a mosque, um, and a car pulled up and a lady said she needed somewhere to pray, and the mosque had no facilities for for women, and it was a bit embarrassing. She needed to pray. What are you supposed to say? You can't just go around saying, well, you should have stayed at home. Allah knows, what her situation was. The same with, someone, let's say someone has to go out, to buy something, to, food to, feed her children or something, and they need to pray if there's no facilities. We also find in our times, like mental health conditions are, frequently and commonly found, much more than it was in the past. And, for deen, just to be able to connect with Allah Azza wa Jal, and or to have a healthy relationship, is sometimes very important to be around people who, are also, practicing and trying to get closer to Allah. So mosques or Islamic centers or other institutes that do allow ladies to come and pray together, these sorts of things, they are important. They are important. So the the ruling would not be of absolute impermissibility in our times. Maybe in certain places and situations, there would be an exception, like Fajr, when it's dark, early in the morning, say 4 in the morning, for someone to just walk out of a house. Yeah, I'm off to the mosque. There are dangers. There are dangers. There are, so but for the other prayers, or like in Ramadan, should they want to go to a Taraweeh or something in a group, or with their husbands or brothers or someone, then there will be permissibility. Having said that, it is important to note that the greatest reward for a lady, for her prayers, is when she prays at home, right? And there is great reward in that, and more than praying out in the mosque or in a group. However, as I said, because of other factors, the need to, sometimes, if a person's at home and, there is no religious environment and they're trying to practice themselves, so doing so just will lead them to just failing again and again. But being around people who are practicing, or going and listening to a reminder from, a scholar, if it's going to help them, then, and Sheikh Hassan al-Hindi, his position does make sense. And Allah Ta'ala knows best. Is yawning in the prayer disliked? Um, you can't really help yawning in a sense. It's disliked to, make a noise and, oh, something like that. That would probably invalidate your prayer. So if you do yawn in the prayer, then it's the proper adab is to try and stifle it, and to not make a noise, even outside of the prayer, not to like make a yawning noise, and so the proper adab is before Allah, right? And standing before Allah, uh, requires certain manners. So to not do that. Uh, Imam Muhammad Amin ibn Abidin radiallahu anhu, he mentions that the prophets didn't yawn. So in some cases, yawning can be caused by shaitan, right? And just like in the Quran, Allah mentions that the meteorites are sent to chase away the jinn. It doesn't mean every single meteor is chasing a jinn away, but it's just one of the functions. So yawning, sometimes you could just be extremely tired. Sometimes people yawn when they're trying to concentrate on, let's say, someone delivering a speech or whatever, and the listener is thinking about what's being said, and they're concentrating, and the brain needs extra oxygen to maintain that focus. So people yawn. It doesn't mean that they can't they can't wait for the talk to be over. So one of those causes is that shaitan comes, and he causes people to yawn. But the prophets, right, they say, Allah Ta'ala A'lam, they said that the prophets didn't yawn. And Imam Ibn Abidin says, radiallahu anhu, he says that if someone is about to yawn and you think the prophets didn't yawn, it stops you from yawning. And this is tried and tested. This is tried and tested. Next time you feel like yawning, just tell yourself the prophets didn't yawn, and it will stop you from yawning then at that moment. It might come back later. Just do it again if you want. But in the prayer, you can think that, and that will be sufficient, inshallah ta'ala. Okay, I've got a couple more. Is there a prescribed dua between prostrations in prayer? Yes, there are a number of du'as, and instead of reading them out to you, I will recommend that you buy the Kitab al-Adhkar, the Book of Remembrances by Imam al-Nawawi, radiyallahu anhu wa ardah. And there are a number of these adhkar that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught us. And you can say them in your sunnah and nafil prayers. It's ideal it's best to leave them out of your fard. But yeah, it is a sunnah to recite some of these in your other prayers in the Hanafi school. So that's the best approach. And it's nice to learn them, and it can bring an extra layer of connection in your prayer. When you learn these du'as, and you know that the Messenger of Allah, who was the perfect servant of Allah, right, subhanahu wa ta'ala, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he would praise Allah with these words. The being who knew Allah better than anyone else, he was choosing these words to praise Allah. Just knowing that, as you're saying them, it does bring some depth to the prayer. So think of it like that, and may Allah make our prayers deep, prayers of sincerity and genuine khushu', reverence before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and devotion. Okay, and last one. Does failing to cut the required length of hair after the Umrah necessitate a sacrifice? Allah. Okay, so it's for context. After an Umrah, so the Umrah is you get into Ihram, you do the Tawaf around the Kaaba, you do the Sa'i, and then to end the Umrah and to exit the Ihram, you have to do the Tahallul, which is shaving or trimming your hair. Shaving your head or trimming your hair. So shaving is ideal for men, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam prayed 3 times for those who shave and once for those who trim. So how much do you trim? They say qadrul unmula. So one of these parts, the divisions of your finger, let's say an inch from a quarter of the head is the minimum. Ideally, someone with longer hair, or if they don't want to shave, they'd cut an inch off all of the hair, but but at least a quarter of the head should be trimmed like this. And so that would get them out of the ihram. And thankfully there are certain things, like if you mess something up, you can repeat it without having to do a sacrifice. So for example, if someone went and did the tawaf, and then they realized, oh no, I didn't have wudu, and then he went and did the sa'i, so technically the tawaf is done, it's grossly deficient, and then he did the sa'i, you don't need wudu for the sa'i. So if such a person, if he went and made a fresh wudu and did another tawaf to compensate for that one with that intention, then there's no sacrifice required. So in this situation, just trimming the required amount of hair, even if you, like they say, if you after the Umrah or after the Hajj, if you went into the Bariya, if you went out of Makkah, outside, and then he without trimming the required amount of hair or shaving, and he got rid of the hair somehow, shaving it, or even putting a cream on that made his hair fall out or something, like on the spot, yeah, that would take care of it. So if that's done, then inshallah ta'ala, there won't be a sacrifice required. Allah knows best. All right. So we only have one question. Okay. What do Hanafis say about feeding kuffar during Ramadan fasting hours? Please mention references if you remember. I cannot recall seeing anything being impermissible regarding this. Allahu Ta'ala A'lam. There's no harm in feeding someone. Like if someone is ill or if someone's a traveler, and you were to offer them food, I can't think of any prohibition regarding this. So even if a non-Muslim is there in front of you and you offer them some food, I don't think it's going to be impermissible. And sometimes the reference is a thing not being specifically prohibited or discussed within the parameters of a ruling. So Allahu Alam. If someone does have one such a reference, I'd love to see it, if it's impermissible. But as far as I can deduce at this moment, it's not impermissible, and Allah knows best. Okay, Barakallahu feekum jami'an. Allah bless you all. If there are any questions, I hope you have a nice Ramadan. Allah bless you all. So we'll stop here and continue, inshallah.